Many people wonder if reincarnation exists. It's a very common belief in all Eastern religions such as Taoism, Hinduism, and Buddhism. But what if we told you that it was once found in Christianity, but was removed from the historical record? So if this is true, why isn't it found today, and who removed it? When you look at history and dig, you'll find almost every major spiritual practice believes in reincarnation. And if reincarnation is real, what is the purpose? All of this and more on today's episode of Edge of Wonder.
Welcome to Edge of Wonder. I'm your host, Ben.
And I'm Rob.
The topic of reincarnation has been on everyone's mind since from as far back as we have books to record it. On this episode, we'll explain what reincarnation is, the purpose, and what religions have to say about it.
A lot of religions and even people have their own interpretations. Some say that their previous lives don't have anything to do with this life, and some say it has everything to do with this life. Most understand it as the soul, which goes through all sorts of transformations until it reaches its final journey where it ascends, ending the cycle of reincarnation and at its final resting place.
Also, Eastern faiths believe that karma is a huge factor, that when you do good deeds or act under the will of heaven or the universe, you will be rewarded in your next life. You could become a king, or an actor, or a wealthy person, or someone very successful.
If you did bad deeds or hurt people, then it's said that in your next life people will hurt you, cause the same amount of pain to you, or you may have to be their servant your whole life, or always work for them.
Also, maybe you were in love with someone and that person died, and maybe you vowed you'd be together in your next life, in which some people would say, oh, I found my soulmate. Or
also, it's possible that a group of people could reincarnate together, such as maybe a family would reincarnate as best friends or all start a company together, etc., etc.
Or maybe someone did die too soon and wishes to come back in a very similar life or even know the same people. There are all kinds of reasons and explanation which could explain reincarnation.
But a more wild thought is, maybe you did hurt someone and now that person reincarnated into a family member who is now part of your family and always seems to be giving you a hard time. You never know. I mean, it could be why.
These are just some possible examples to explain why we would reincarnate.
If you want to know how, keep watching for the next section when we get into it. And if you're really curious, the ancient Greeks believed this too. Keep watching and we'll get into that as well.
The Edge of Wonder.
Let's look at how religions talk about it.
What do religions say?
In Buddhism, many of them believe in something called the sixfold path of transmigration. This means that one would reincarnate into a human in one life, and in the next one you could be an animal, or could be a plant, or in some cases maybe even a lower level being.
Or in my case, a rock. That's why everyone always tells me I'm as dumb as a rock. Actually, though, this is true. Not that people call me that I'm as dumb as a rock, but it's that if you reincarnate into a rock, you could be in there for thousands of years. And this is why you should cherish having a human body.
The cycle goes on and on with the goal of obtaining spiritual enlightenment, breaking the cycle of reincarnation and ascending to heaven, your final destination.
Or on the other end, if you were doing evil deeds in your lives, your final resting place would be a hell-like place, or you would continue the cycle of transmigration.
This is why many Eastern religions teach so much about having a good moral character and being compassionate and truthful to others, so when you do reincarnate, you will have even a better life in your next one and have more enjoyment, which eventually will lead you to where you can truly transcend this existence altogether.
Otherwise, you might end up as a pig and get eaten by the people you harmed in a previous life. No, really, that's a thing. But Chinese culture is filled with stories such as people who were good people but in their next life became wealthy and then became greedy because of that wealth, and then in their next life they became poor, or vice versa.
There are many sayings in Asian cultures, such as if someone is well off, people say, oh, that person must have done good deeds in his previous life. And if someone is very poor, then they say the opposite, which is where karma starts to really come into play.
Most Eastern religions and beliefs have accepted reincarnation as the fabric of their belief systems. However, in most Western beliefs, such as Christianity and Judaism, these are not widely accepted at all.
Nowadays, most Christians don't believe in reincarnation. However, one of the greatest saints, St. Augustine, wrote a book on the free choice of the will and brings up reincarnation, that it shouldn't be neglected.
Author Geeds McGregor, who wrote Reincarnation in Christianity, claimed that early Christians did believe in reincarnation and that the Bible also talked about it.
Some of the examples he gives of reincarnation is when Moses is talking to his people, he doesn't say to them, "your children," but instead addresses them as "you," possibly indicating that it will be them who will see and hear the coming Messiah. Now, you could, if you're not familiar with this concept, brush this off as their spirits seeing the coming Messiah, but look at some of these other examples.
So there are a few more, such as there was a common Jewish belief at the time that Elijah would return to restore all things before the Messiah appeared. Jesus makes some statements about John the Baptist in the Gospels, which could be understood as references to reincarnation.
One of these are in Matthew 11:14, quote, "If you are willing to accept it, he, John, is Elijah, who is to come," end quote. The other is, quote, "But I tell you that Elijah has already come, and they, the Jews, did not know him, but did to him whatever they pleased," end quote. And there are a couple more references to John.
McGregor states that a lot more about reincarnation was mentioned in the Bible and even directly talked about and explained it. He states that, quote, "The human soul does not return to earth after death, but is resurrected as an individual personality to face judgment," unquote.
He goes on to say, quote, "Second, it has taught that God forgives and extends mercy in the face of human sin and shortcomings. There is no forgiveness and little, if any, mercy connected with the idea of reincarnation. Each soul pays the inevitable price for its own failings and misdeeds in hundreds or thousands of existences," end quote.
This is his way of explaining it. However, he states that all of it was deliberately suppressed by the Catholic Church. Now, we're all asking, why would they ever do that?
Of course, the answer comes with a lot of controversy and debate on both sides, but according to some scholars, such as author Gary J. McDonald, he suggested that, quote, "The church elders wanted the general populace to believe that it was only through the church and its elders could anyone communicate with God or ever hope to reach heaven. This kept all power within the church versus within the people themselves. And since the elders were men, this kept women at a subordinate level as well," end quote.
Okay, so guys, this is a loaded quote, but by eliminating reincarnation, they can maintain their power and control, right? And way later, we already know that the Catholic Church was corrupt kind of during the time of Martin Luther, when he broke away from this form and he formed his own sect, which the belief is that the church was deviating from the true teachings of Christianity.
Please understand and keep in mind that this is not a slight to the Christian belief. The Catholic Church is not the teachings of that faith. It's just the entity that organizes that faith for that group of people, and they're human beings. It isn't that Christianity has deviated. It is the humans in the church who are using the church for their own agenda. Human beings make mistakes.
Like Christianity, most Jewish people don't really believe too much in reincarnation, or at least we thought. However, most will be surprised to find that some Jewish websites, such as Chabad.org, actually says that, quote, reincarnation, evolving of souls through a succession of lives, or the Gulam, is an integral part of the Jewish belief, unquote.
It mentions that the Torah and on the Talmud, and a seminal figure in Jewish history hints several times that reincarnation is the key to penetrating the deep mysteries involving the mitzvah of Yibum, the obligation of the brother of a childless, deceased man to marry the widow.
Like, say what? It's like a mouthful, and I'm not sure I got that, Ben. Now, since neither Ben or I have much background in Jewish religion or the words that he was just saying, it's hard for us to comment on this, but according to World of Judica, the afterlife in Judaism is irrelevant. So a lot of Jews can't accept death as a finality. This brings up the topic of reincarnation. There's no mention of heaven in the first 5 books of the Old Testament.
So heaven isn't even a part of their afterlife and their culture? So the question is, what happens to the soul, or is death final and there's nothing beyond death? So reincarnation for many Jews solves the problem. The soul then returns to complete God's work.
Now, in the Kabbalah, which means receive, but most people think of it as an ancient Jewish mysticism from the time of ancient Babylon, does talk about reincarnation and the tree of life. However, it is said that to this day that very few know the true teachings of what Kabbalah really is.
Now, there are a lot of ancient cultures talking about reincarnations, such as the Mayans, the Egyptians, but one culture we want to focus on here is ancient Greece.
Greek philosopher and mathematician Pythagoras, born around the year 580 BC, stated that the soul was immortal, and after the death, it could own another body and sometimes even an animal's body.
This is where the Greek word metempsychosis, meaning transmigration, came about. As far as we know, this is the first time that reincarnation was mentioned in the West, at least in this time period.
Plato, who was born about a century later, taught that the soul is born many times, even for 10,000 years, and then it parts to a heavenly world.
Socrates, Plato's teacher, said on his deathbed, "I am confident that there truly is such a thing as living again, and that the living spring from the dead."
So, how to stop reincarnation? Now, depending on what you believe, this could be different for each person. However, most people believe that doing good deeds and being kind will lead to a very good situation in your next life. However, to truly break the cycle, most Eastern religions talk about a term: cultivation.
Now, there are many understandings of what cultivation is. How Rob and I would describe it to you is that cultivation is a process of raising your level of selflessness, your character, by a way of method of body, spirit, and mind, while bringing in energy from the universe into your body and by following principles of the specific discipline that the teacher or master has with the goal of reaching enlightenment.
Now, most Eastern religions believe that one lifetime is not nearly enough to reach enlightenment, which is why they believe in reincarnation, so that the soul will always carry with it everything it learns in each lifetime, though we may not remember everything specifically while in your own specific physical body.
However, this also creates a situation where the soul could do bad deeds and thus make it harder and harder for it to practice cultivation, which would result in a very big loss once the cycle has completed for that soul.
But why does reincarnation happen? So some of you might be thinking, okay, but I don't want to reincarnate anymore. Why does it even happen? Well, this isn't an easy question to answer. Also, this could be different for every single person out there.
Maybe you chose to be here. Maybe you were asked. Maybe you were sent here.
Maybe you made a commitment to someone, or many someones, or maybe you needed or wanted to learn something.
Or maybe you came here from somewhere else and wanted to be here to see what it was like to be human.
The point is, there are endless possibilities, and it is better not to focus on why, but instead, ask what you are supposed to do now that you're here. Like, what are you supposed to learn? And I'm not talking about reading a school book. I'm talking about learning spiritually, or who are you supposed to help? What are you supposed to do? What is it that you are truly looking for?
Asking more questions to yourself will help you figure out what it is that you are meant to do. So Rob, what do you think about reincarnation?
Reincarnation's definitely real in my opinion. There's too many weird things that I've had deja vu in weird places too many times and have felt like I've been there. Like not just like I've just felt like I've been there, like I remember specific things and it's freaked me out, right? So for me, I feel like reincarnation's absolutely a thing, and I think there's a really huge, big reason why we're all here. And for us to not believe those things or to not pay attention to especially people who have remembered their past life, I think it's a shame, right? Like we should learn those things and we should know more about them. What do you think, Ben?
Yeah, you know, I didn't believe in past lives at all, and it wasn't until I actually started seeing some of mine that, like a couple of them, that I was just like this is crazy. And then I felt connected to it like my whole life. One of them, I saw myself as this like sailor, and it was on 3 ships or whatever, and I didn't really think too much about it at the time. I was just like, okay, it was a long time ago, and I was like a navigator, and I was really good at mapping and all the stars and everything. And the funny thing is, if I were to explain the story about like 20 years ago, everyone would have been like, wow, this is great, but now I'd probably be hated. But I really think I was Christopher Columbus's navigator.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So as soon as I went online and saw his photo, that's when I knew right away that this was me. Like, he looks exactly who I saw in my vision. Juan de la Cosa, which...
Yeah, and look at this photo of him. He looks just like Ben.
So, yeah, I mean, he was really, he was like a genius with the stars, and that's what I saw. He actually created the first world map, and I've always been obsessed with sailing and maps ever since I could remember. Now, of course, there's this whole controversy with Christopher Columbus and everything, and so I'm saying, like, hope I'm not hated. I mean, I don't, you know.
I don't think I was Christopher Columbus.
No,
just for
I
the
wasn't
record.
Christopher Columbus, but this
No,
guy.
but we could have reincarnated together in many lives, in which case me being Christopher Columbus could be possible. And for the record, I don't think I was.
That I believe fully, that when when you have a strong connection with somebody, it's most likely because you've had a lot of past lives. That's what I believe. So we must have had a lot of past lives.
Probably.
Maybe you killed me in a past life.
I was a ninja, for sure.
Anyway, so what do you guys think of this episode on reincarnation?
You know, there's a lot of people with, really strong different beliefs on all across the board, and the purpose of this episode wasn't to offend anyone or, insult their specific religious belief at all. We just really wanted to dig in here and find whether or not all of these different religions said the same thing, and what we found is evidence that it actually did, and we just wanted you guys to know that.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I never believed in reincarnation until, like I said, I started seeing these, and there's a lot more, but I don't want to get into all those stories.
Yeah.
Take too long to tell.
It could be a long episode if we started talking about this. Guys, make sure to hit like and subscribe, and please hit those notification bells, and until next time,
we'll see you out
on the edge of Juan de la Cosa.
Hey everyone, have you been enjoying Edge of Wonder? Do you want to help us keep creating new and exciting content every week? Now's your chance. Go to
edgeofwonder.nyc.
So guys, we just launched our own version of Patreon, our exclusive donation page where you can pledge monthly at a minimum of $1.50 a month.
But we'll have different tiers of subscription, which will have different offerings depending on how much you pledge. And we want to keep focusing on making great content for you guys and grow it into something you guys will love. So where is it?
edgeofwonder.nyc.
Anyway, we love you guys, and we'll see you out
on the edge. Did I say selfishness? Selflessness. Sorry, you're right.
Raising your level of selfishness.
Being more selfish.
So that you take everything for your own.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, Ben, this is what I think. What did you just do to me?
Burger marshmallow.